There we go. Okay, excellent. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. It is August 15th, 2024. This is our regularly scheduled city council meeting. We'll go ahead and do the roll call.
Mayor Wusso,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Dane, Councilor Godis, Councilor Zelinski, Councilor Weimer, Councilor Kaup, Councilor Schachter. We have a quorum.
Great. Do we have any agenda changes or conflicts? I'll take that as a none. I'll move on to any council announcements. This is for upcoming events. Oh, Councilor Kaup.
You have one. There was an announcement made by the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. I have to get to my piece of paper on that. So I am representing the city on that, the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition, and they are announcing the launch of their first program that's for regional housing. It's called the Good Deeds Program, and it's modeled after the Eagle County Good Deeds Program. And what this program will do is it will help people with down payment assistance on a home somewhere in the Roaring Fork or Valley. Actually extends into the Colorado River Valley also. And it will, in exchange for a down payment on a home, there will be a deed restriction put on the home to make that home be more affordable into the future in an unlimited amount of time. So City of Glenwood Springs put money into this program, as well as the town of Snowmass Village, Carbondale, Pitkin County, and also Aspen. And so they're looking at trying to deed restrict 30 homes. It's development neutral, so they're not building new homes right now, but they're trying to get those homes to just remain more affordable into the future. So.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, any other council announcements? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up the citizens appearing before council. As a reminder, these are for items that are not on this evening's agenda. I have a couple names on a list. I'll read those off first. If you're here and didn't put your name on the list, do not worry. We'll go ahead and give you 3 minutes of time. We'll go ahead and start with Travis Smith. And Travis, if you want to come up to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Yeah, that's perfect. If you can just tell us your name and if you live in city limits.
My name is Travis Smith. Yes, I do live in city limits.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you're welcome to begin. The timer's up on the screen.
Okay, sorry, you're a little nervous in front of a lot of people.
I think everybody does. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
You're good.
So,
Yeah.
the reason we're here tonight is for the recent implementation of the no on-street parking in the Oasis Creek subdivision, which is where we happen to live. I'm sure you guys have been getting an influx of stuff about this. And
there's been lots of discussion. Yeah.
Well, that's for good reason. I mean, there's a lot of adverse effects that the homeowners are going to incur because of this change that has been made. I mean, frankly, I've lived up there for 11 years and I've never felt that there's been a parking issue in this neighborhood. I mean, by comparison to a lot of the neighborhoods in town, we have pretty wide streets. I've already spoken to Ryan Gordon from the city, about this. And so I just, I mean, should I touch on the issues that we might have?
Sure. Use your minute and 45 seconds left to just,
So we have everything from contractors that can't park in our driveways because they're very narrow. We have a lot of people with very small driveways and stuff like that. We actually have a very steep driveway where we literally cannot park in this driveway. And, when there's a lot of snow and stuff out, or that, we're having like a heavy storm and stuff like that. So we've always utilized the street for that sort of thing. Also, if we're going to have family in town or anything like that, I mean, it would be absurd to think that we would have to get them a right-of-way permit to be able to come visit us. I mean, I've been told that this is not going to be a particularly heavy-handed thing when it comes to code enforcement, but I don't know where that discernment comes in terms of like, you know, how you're actually going to discern what's appropriate or what's not, or what's going on, like you're having contractor work done or whatever, and it necessitates parking in the street, which is literally right in front of your house. You know, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's it's not a good deal. I mean, literally, they've designated the entire neighborhood as no on-street parking, which frankly is absurd. There are many other neighborhoods that are far tighter than our neighborhood, and we would like to see a compromise or something in this, because there's gonna be a lot of negative impacts for us up there.
Okay, hang tight. We're gonna have some comments after we hear all of the public comment during this period, and we'll maybe give an update on that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, wow, that's a new timer. Marie Doan?
Hi, I'm Marie Dome, and I also live in Glenwood Springs.
Thank you.
I'm also in the Oasis Creek subdivision, so I'm here about the same issues. I don't want to repeat anything he said, but I'll just add on, yeah, the service vehicles is a huge one. And like he said, people coming to visit are the main reasons that people are parking there. I understand if there was an issue with long-term overnight parking, if we were worried about people parking camper vans up there. And I also understand like rules for the winter because there's plowing. So, I would be very amenable to any kind of compromise we could make in terms of neighborhoods that have like parking on certain sides of the street during certain parts of the day for plowing. And I just would feel better if there was some sort of alternative up there for us. There's just no alternatives that are walkable in the neighborhoods. When you have an apartment down, on 6th Street near all the car dealerships and stuff, like I get that. There's a lot of parking that's walkable. But up in Traver Trail, like up in that Oasis Creek subdivision, to ask someone to park at like West Glenwood Park and Ride, take the bus over to the nearest bus stop and walk all the way up, that's like over an hour to get there, to have somewhere to park overnight. And I live in an area, there's a shared driveway. So we do not have our own multiple, many parking spots. When we do have guests come to visit, it's complicated for them to realize when they're not blocking our neighbors. So we always ask people to please park in the street so that we don't block our neighbors. And that's the first thing our neighbors told us when they moved in, like, please, this is how we all park here. Don't block our driveways. We've been trying to be really respectful, and now that's kind of our other option is being taken away. And that's a bummer. And I don't see the parking being misused in terms of people staying long-term there. Usually what I'm seeing is service workers or, a guest there for 1 to 2 nights. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else here this evening for items that are not on this evening's agenda? Then I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to council, and this is for council reaction to public comment. So I'm going to jump in and say that by all means, that we are taking this implementation in Oasis Creek very seriously. And there's a lot of nuances to it, but we do have a community meeting scheduled on the 22nd. So, we invite everyone that's being impacted by this to join at that meeting. If you need any more details to it, we'll make sure that it gets out there. We're happy to answer any questions this evening, but big picture, that's the next step in this dialogue. So please join us. Do you know the time for that, Steve?
No.
Okay. I know. I think it's the evening of the 22nd. Bree? Okay. Maybe by the end of the meeting, we'll know, and we'll make sure we share it. But big picture, mark your calendars. I believe it's the evening of the 22nd. We'll make sure everyone in the community knows, and your voices are important to us. This impacts you. We recognize that. So thank you as we try to work through this together. So thank you. Counselor Schechter.
Thank you. I didn't realize there's a meeting. I think that's a great idea. We had at a prior meeting, a community with a part of the town with some unique parking issues. And we charge them, to come back to us
Mhm.
with solutions. I would
Yeah.
encourage you to do the same thing.
We are, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
and
yeah.
it's great. It's really helpful when solutions come from the community
Mhm.
in conjunction with staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, great. We will go ahead then and close the council reactions to public comments. Bring it back to council. Oh, Counselor Goda, sorry.
Yeah, I just, if
Mm-hmm.
it pleases the rest of council, I missed an announcement because my announcement wasn't here yet. Would it be okay if I introduced my, my foreign exchange student, not my foreign exchange student, the foreign exchange student, Elisa Baghetti, if you could stand up. Elisa, you don't have to say anything, or I don't need to embarrass you, but she's been staying with us for the last 4.5 weeks. She goes back to Italy on Sunday, and she's been so wonderful to have. She's been like our
Yeah.
third daughter.
Yep.
Our daughter went and stayed with her family, who was so gracious in hosting her. I just want to give a shout out to Rotary, both the Rotary in Evera and the Glenwood Springs Rotary,
That's awesome.
for helping to make this happen. And Elisa, we've really enjoyed having you. We enjoy the Rotary that allows this to happen, and the schools that have been so generous with this whole exchange program. It's been fantastic for our family. And if you've ever had that experience, I know Shelley, your son's done it.
Mhm.
It's awesome. So anyway, I just wanted to announce and recognize Lisa.
That's perfect. Thank you. And
Helping me and, caring about me.
perfect. I hear you're a very brave camper and river rat now, and you've had lots of new experiences, and also a huge shout out to the Godas family for welcoming you into the community. So thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will bring it back to council for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll look for a second. Counselor Kelp,
I'll second the motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're gonna go ahead and do a proclamation for Kiwanis. This is for their 80th year here in the community.
Come on out, hello.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna sign it and I'm gonna give it back to you.
Great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
This is a proclamation for the 80th anniversary of the Kiwanis Club 2024. Whereas Kiwanis International was founded in 1915 in Detroit, Michigan, with the mission statement, Kiwanis is a global organization dedicated to improving the world one child and one community at a time. And whereas Glenwood Springs Kiwanis was chartered in 1944 and will celebrate 80 years as an organization this year, and whereas Glenwood Springs Kiwanis has approximately 45 members, building and maintaining their successful club through active recruitment efforts led by their membership team. And whereas Glenwood Springs Kiwanis has been instrumental in the Hanging Lake Trail from its inception, even using a team of mules to haul materials up the trail to a bucket brigade. They have also played such a pivotal role in the creation and maintenance of Veltus Park that it was once called Kiwanis Park, only changing its name to Veltus after a Kiwanis member who saved a young girl from drowning. Whereas Glenwood Springs Kiwanis annually awards $12,000 in high school scholarships, and whereas Glenwood Springs Kiwanis builds and contributes to our community through programs that benefit children and youth. Now therefore, I, Ingrid Wuso, Mayor of the City of Glenwood Springs, do hereby proclaim August 15th, 2024 as the Kiwanis Club of Glenwood Springs Day in the City of Glenwood Springs in recognition of the 80 years of continuous service the Kiwanis Club of Glenwood Springs has made to the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And on behalf of all our members, thank you very much for this.
Yeah, thanks for all you guys
recognition.
do for our community. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
we're gonna take a quick break just for a few moments. So I'm gonna go ahead and have the cameras turn off for 5 minutes and we'll come back. Thank you. Do I want to do that? Yeah, there we go. Okay, we'll go ahead and jump back in. We are going to begin with our very first item on actions and or presentations with the number 14 resolution 24-25 setting infrastructure fund ballot language.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What you have before you is a resolution that would set an election for the city of Glenwood Springs on a particular ballot issue. Obviously, that's going to be a coordinated election, and so that'll be being run with the county. If you guys do decide to place a question on the ballot, attached to that in the packet is a couple of different versions of that ballot language. After the work session this afternoon, I did try to revise it a little bit to what I think I heard from everybody, and I handed that out as well as emailing it to you guys. But with that, I think really this is being driven primarily by the community, Community on the Move, who has been a longstanding group of folks who have been committed to issues in the community for the betterment of the community. They're really the driver on this. So I think with that, I'd like to just turn it over to them, and then we can talk about specific language.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll go whoever the representative from Community on the Move that wants to speak first. We'd love to have you up at the podium. You can introduce yourself and let us know if you live in city limits.
Hi, Mike McCallum, 605 West Columbia Court in Glenwood. I'm the current chairman of Community on the Move. And Community on the Move is a group of citizens dedicated to ensuring the best future outcomes for the residents and visitors of Glenwood Springs. With the city's street tax set to expire in December 2026, this group has been working hard since January, digging deep into both the city's needs and what residents want in terms of streets and the underlying infrastructure. A survey in May showed strong support for a 1-cent sales tax, with 67% of respondents saying yes. This approach is popular to voters that want a comprehensive solution that addresses not just road repairs, but also replaces aging infrastructure like water and sewer pipes. Community outreach to community groups like the Kiwanis Club, Rotary, Lions, and through the city's Make It Make Sense informational meetings has allowed an opportunity to educate and hear feedback from community members. The city's long-term plan focuses on maintaining and restructuring all of our streets and the underlying infrastructure over the next 20 years. We're confident that the Public Works Department's upgraded master plan and scope of needs listed in priority is an accurate map forward. Based on the plan, survey results, and community feedback, Glenwood Springs Community on the Move recommends that the city place a 1-cent sales tax measure on the November 2024 ballot. This measure would extend the current 0.5-cent sales tax, adding another 0.5 cent for a total of 1 cent over the next 20 years. The funds would be dedicated exclusively to streets and underlying infrastructure. Should council approve placing this on the ballot, a citizen issue committee will be formed to lead the campaign. The goal is to truthfully communicate and educate the critical need, benefit, and cost to maintain our streets and infrastructure below the streets. Streets and infrastructure are vital to our city's success. Well-maintained roads, efficient transportation networks, and strong public works are critical for a community to thrive. The tax is an investment in our future. A dedicated 1-cent sales tax allows for sustainable budgeting. It's the only dedicated and reliable revenue stream for our streets and long-term planning, the steady and execution of essential projects, avoiding piecemeal funding for emergency measures. At just 1 penny for every dollar spent, the cost is minimal. Both residents and visitors who enjoy Glenwood Springs share the responsibility, so the burden doesn't fall solely on locals. The expanded tax would allow us to address future changes, ensuring our streets and underlying infrastructure evolve with our needs. The first and most important element in securing a tax is voter trust. The 1-cent tax will be strictly earmarked for streets and underlying infrastructure projects. We also recommend a 20-year sunset clause, ensuring the tax is reassessed and adjusted for future needs and preventing indefinite taxation without community consent. The sunset provision was a key to our success 20 years ago, and it remains just as important today. The polling highlights 2 critical points. 1, tourists and non-residents will contribute the majority of the sales taxes. 2, the tax will sunset in 20 years. These factors are central to our continued success. This year's question reflects the need to address the insufficiency of the previous half cent in 2024 dollars for various reasons. Now with the sunset on the half cent, the city's voters have the opportunity to create a funding mechanism that best suits today's Glenwood Springs. We believe in trusting the residents of Glenwood Springs to decide what's best for their future. A 20-year sunset allows future voters to reassess and make decisions based on their needs at that time. Perpetual tax proposal could unintentionally undermine trust as it removes this opportunity for reassessment. Just as the city is asking voters to trust them with tax money, we believe it's important to trust voters with their vote. Additionally, we propose an additional audit by an independent third party, which the results shared openly with the community to ensure every penny is used for city streets and their infrastructure. This 1 cent sales tax is a small price for long-term benefits it will bring to Glenwood Springs. We urge you to view this measure as more than just a financial decision. It's a commitment to our city's future. We ask that you put the question on the ballot. A unanimous council vote is a strong signal to voters that our elected representatives collectively concur that this action is necessary. This is not a want ask for our community. This is absolutely needed ballot question to ensure the funding for our local streets and underlying infrastructure. Glad to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions? Counselor Gotis.
Mike, you say in the polling that it was key that there's a 20-year sunset, but when I read the poll, I did not see any specific questions that tested a 20-year sunset.
Every question on there referred to a 20-year tax. So if we took off the 20-year sunset, we don't know if the polling is really accurate or not.
So in the pro message that Fredericks had suggested, there's no mention of a 20-year sunset. And the pro message is that he suggested would test well, that would be a good message to help pass this tax, did not refer to a 20-year sunset at all. Why is that?
Well, there were several pro messages on there. I guess the best way I look at it is if we were to ask around and explain there's a specific end date that we might get additional support. I think if we told everybody that this is a perpetual forever tax that we have to pay, I don't think that garners any votes and we might actually lose support.
Is Fredericks the one that suggested that we have a sunset?
Fredericks didn't suggest anything as to the structure of it. They just tested the questions.
So I guess where did the certainty that we needed a 20-year sunset come from?
Well, from the 40 years, the Community on the Move has helped pass ballot measures that were, we think, very necessary for the community and very helpful for the community. Almost all of them out of sunset. So it just gives people the opportunity to revisit and say, how did you do with this tax in the past? Did you do a good job? If not, they may not support it. If we did, then they probably do support it.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Coe.
Thank you, Mike, for being here. In my memory, Community on the Move has been very successful in partnering with the city and also the chamber in moving forward tax measures that benefit the city infrastructure and other elements. Have you all reviewed the language that's in the packet? And does Community on the Move support the language?
It just came out and we haven't had a meeting since then.
Okay.
So from our past experience, I mean, it's pretty typical that you have to go by Tabor, and
Right.
it's like the first number they throw out there. Well, may or may not be a good number, but you have to put it in there. So we understand there's certain things that you have to, but
Okay. But in general,
right.
going to the 1 cent with 25% of that going towards the infrastructure piece and with the 20-year sunset.
Correct.
And then is it, what is the plan with Community on the Move as far as working with the community between now and the election to make it successful?
Well, we already have a marketing plan to try and get the word out. So I really believe the key to our success in the past has been, identify the need, explain the benefit, and tell them how much it costs. We always get, our citizens are pretty smart. We always get a good result.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's our job. What's tough is when there's misinformation, and it's hard to address that. I mean, you guys were talking about the Blue Book earlier.
Yeah.
And I didn't know until I think the last election that, if we're promoting something, we always submit, a pro statement on there. One of the statements that came out in the Blue Book was so false, it was ridiculous. Whoever submits does not have to tell the truth in their statement. They have to print whatever they want to put in. So it's very hard to combat if we say it's a 1 cent for 20 years. It's really, that's gonna, be, $150 million over 20 years. Somebody could say this is going to be $500 million and that's way too much and blah, 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 and they have to print it. It's just absurd. But so that's the type of thing it's hard to combat is misinformation.
Yeah.
But hopefully as again, a trusted partner with history in the community, you can combat some of that with speaking the truth. So, okay.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
that's the most difficult part, but we do our best to try and get truthful, accurate information. This is why we need it. And one of the most critical is this is how we pay for our streets. There is no other funding in your budget to do that.
Right.
If we lose this, we all pitch together and throw rocks in the potholes? I mean, seriously, what do you
Yeah.
do? Where's
Yeah,
it come
and-
from? There
and
is no
city's
other
done a
source.
Great job bringing in grants, but you
Mhm.
need some base funding there to leverage and do other things.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
thank you.
people want to know, what's it going to cost and why are we doing it? And, if we can get that truthful information out, most people will recognize this is the way we pay for our streets.
Yeah.
Luckily, the majority of it is paid for by tourists and other
Mhm.
visitors that come through our town and spend their money. So
Right.
for residents, we get, more than half of it paid for by people that don't live here, which is
Yeah. Which is nice and
It's great.
fair because they also impact our.
right. Our tourists use our streets and,
Right.
our water and sewer system and on and on. So it's like, it's great that they help pitch in and pay for part of the wear and tear.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Schechter.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Mike. There's if I would, this is a question. There's a reason Community on the Move is here or whatever you want to call yourselves this time, but would you mind whether it's anecdotal and historical, and you mentioned why you do sunsetting, could you kind of, for the record, give us a little history of what Community Move has done in terms of passages over the last 40 years?
40.
40, I said.
Yeah.
Oh, we thought you said 4.
No, 40.
I do have that. So if you want me to go from memory on that,
Well,
40 years.
I know you better than that.
Last week is tough, so. And we have distributed this out, at times, but, and I can leave one, but it started in 1991, a 0.5 cent tax to build pedestrian bridge and make improvements. 85, tourism promotion was created by the chamber. And it was a 1.5 lodging tax or bed tax. 1991, 1 cent sales tax increased a 0.5 cent to 1 cent. Projects completed acquisition of right-of-way, extension of 27th Street pedestrian underpass, park and ride in West Glenwood, Glenwood Springs, improved transportation signage, purchase of several properties for future highway relocation. So there were a number of things. 98 ballot 2A and 2B extension and bonding of the 1 cent A&I sales tax for the raw water delivery system, City Hall, Municipal Operations Center, Community Center, Trails, Arts and Historical Society. 2000 accommodations tax increase from to 2.5 from 1.5. 2000 creation of the Downtown Development Authority. 2005 2A was street maintenance and reconstruction tax. 2013 2A and 5A, 2 mil increase for fire protection. 2016 renewal of the A&I 2018 was to continue essential emergency fire and medical services. So
And
we've had 100% success. We had one that there were two questions, the tax question and a bonding question, and the bonding question passed and the tax didn't. So the next year the tax passed. So almost 100%.
so they've been successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Zelinski.
So just in looking at this, I think one of the biggest components of this is, the trust factor and the transparency
Mhm.
factor. And I would really ask that it is stressed that that budget will be published, available to the public. And, a listing of the expenditures and how that money was connected and expended. So I think that that is, really key in creating the confidence. And I would ask that you would definitely stress that as you kind of roll out kind of your campaigning for this.
We consistently hear, I want to make sure this goes to our existing streets and infrastructure, not,
Beautification, yeah,
Mhm.
Right.
nope,
Yeah.
exactly, same.
Okay.
And so I think that that's really, really important that it is stressed that is recognized, acknowledged, and we will honor that.
the specificity is huge with this one. I mean, it's been getting more and more important, but it's huge with this one. And we understand, I mean, I've done a number of elections. I mean, Carl's probably has more experience than I do with it, but we've done a lot of them, and it's really difficult to have the question on the ballot explain exactly what happens with, with the tax and where it goes. So these extra things that we can put in, I think the ordinance and the other things that we can put in there that you will have, the annual audit. The city gets an independent audit anyway. All you have to do is break out that, the streets department and put down there where the expenditures and revenue came from. So it's not any extra work or burden. It's just pull it out and publish it, so that everybody can see it on an annual basis.
Great, thank you. Jonathan, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, questions. I'll take one more question and then I'm gonna open up to public comment.
So I know it didn't pull as well, but typically bonding accompanies questions like this. Do we see any advantage to doing a bonding question as well? Or do we think this will generate enough funds that we don't have to do bonding?
Well, on this one, it was in, and we kind of decided it just might, muddy the waters a little too much with it being 3 pages this year and having an A and a B. We thought it might be too confusing. Once you have the revenue stream, you certainly can go back and I think it makes total sense. If you have 3 or 4 major projects and you want to do them all within a 3 or 4 year period of time, I think it makes sense to go borrow the money and get them all done before construction costs go up even more. And, it's hard for us the average person understands inflation and what's been going on, but they don't realize, I think Matt said construction costs are up 17% a year for the last 2 years. Well, you're not going to be able to put streets down for the same price 10 years from now as you might be able to do in the next 3 or 4 years. So it might make sense, depending on where interest rates are, to put a borrowing question out there to basically say, we'd like to get these done at current prices rather than wait 10 years and, have to pay double to put a street down.
What is now the time to ask that question, or is now just the time to do this one once in?
We're recommending that we just go for the renewal and the increase, and then if the city would like to. The beauty of Community on the Move in the city, it's been a great relationship where generally the city comes and says, here's what we'd like to do. Here's a couple of maybe funding mechanisms. What do you guys think? And they let us, and it takes us, a few months to put it together and test it. And we like to do a professional poll to see where it really lands. So if we get, more than a 60% plus kind of a support, we figure we might lose 5 or 10% when they walk into the voting booth and just go, nah, I'm not going to do that. So, but when they walk in, if they understand it and think it's critical, they go right to it and go, yeah, we need to vote for that. So it's been really a lot of fun to get a lot of these things done and built over the years. And Community on the Move, I mean, we're kind of in the background. We'll have a campaign committee. We'll collect funds and do some advertising and try to get the word out the best we can so that people know what to do once they get their ballot in their hands.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're going to open it to public comment. There may be an opportunity for you to come back up and help us answer any questions that come up. For those who are here to support or not support or ask questions or anything along those lines, I will be taking public comment now on this ballot question. Gary Vick, come on up. You know the rules. If you can give us your name, if you live in city limits, and then keep it to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Gary Vick. I live at 614 Cowden. And I'm not for or against or advocating one way or another on this. I think we're all in agreement that our roads need to be upgraded. It's a question of how we fund it. Using the public data from a couple of sites, one can see that most municipalities have city sales taxes that are much less than ours. And most pay for streets and repairs and improvements out of their general fund with no separate street tax. The proposed street tax will put our city tax at 4.2%. We'll be among the top 4% of all municipalities in Colorado when ranked by city sales tax. Only 8 cities in the state will out-tax Glenwood, and many of these, Rico, Blackhawk, Winter Park, Telluride, and Steamboat Springs, are small communities in resort towns where it makes sense to grab as much money from everybody driving by as possible. That's not us. In fact, if we throw out all the outliers, that puts us in rifles at 4 1/4. In the top 1% of municipalities ranked by city sales tax. You're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to answer the question, when most other cities repair streets without a special tax out of their general fund, and 96% of Colorado towns can do it with less total tax than is being proposed, why can't you? Our general fund pays for a lot of overhead that many cities our size don't have. And we all admit that. But we can't just say that we have a lot of overhead, so we need a tax increase. We need much more definitive numeric data to make an intelligent decision on this. In other words, show us. 2 more things. We've got to ensure that the $1.5 million that the city general fund currently contributes to streets is maintained, and that this in no way, shape, or form can be used for South Bridge construction. And that's not in the language anywhere. It's not your intent to do that, so it costs you nothing to put that in the language. And if I had done a survey framed this way, I probably could have gotten 50%, 57% of the people to not like this tax. So it needs to go to the voters. We need to have a debate. I haven't come down one way or another yet. Thank you for the opportunity.
Is anyone else here this evening to speak? Okay. Anyone online specific to this item? We see if any attendees, do we have any attendees? Or am I looking at attendees? Yeah, I think so. So, okay, we're gonna just assume that there is no one in attendees with their hands up. I'm gonna go ahead and close the public comment section. Does anybody from Community on the Move want to comment on the public comment? Okay. With that in mind, I'm gonna bring it back to council, and I'll look for a motion. And we'll go with that. Counselor Sector.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, regarding resolution 2024-25, setting infrastructure fund ballot language. I would move that we approve the resolution, and I need some guidance. Are we talking about with the revised?
Yeah, with the
Exhibit A?
revised, and that for the public's benefit would be filling in the Tabor amount at the beginning at $5 million.
Okay.
And it would be the version that is a set 25% going to underground utilities in those repaired streets.
That would be my motion.
I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion? Counselor Schachter.
No, thank you. I will comment briefly to Mr. Vick, and I appreciate he didn't say he took a stance, but it sounded a bit like a stance. We are, I think, as you look through our budget and you have, I would say what you're calling overhead is overhead, but these are amenities that this town supplies to its community, that the community is used to, has asked for, and with a great deal of participation, whether it be that other cities don't have, whether it be rec center, extensive parks, open land, broadband services, our own electric system, our own water system. Some of them are enterprise, yes, but they all entail overhead, which I would call amenities that you're referring to, which does make us a little different. And I don't have any problem justifying the tax, bearing in mind the community on the move has told us there's good support for this. We need it. The number one issue, one of the number one issues, one or two that we hear repeatedly is fix the streets. And that's how we've been fixing the streets for decades. And in addition, there will be the audit, and this city has received award-winning audits for ages in terms of accountability. And there will be implementation ordinance that also protects all of us, that says this money will go where the voters approved it. And in relation to Southbridge, bear in mind, the resolution says existing streets. Southbridge is not an existing street. So I think my support for this is virtually total, because I think it meets the metrics of trust, accountability, and need. So thank you.
Counselor Cope.
I have a question for the city attorney, just on the amount, the 5 million. That looks to be based on the increase of the half-cent sales tax, not a full 1 cent.
Yep. Well, it's one of those things about Tabor, right? Because Tabor asks us to identify the total first year increase in taxes. Because this is a renewal and an increase.
Right.
Then that number, to be accurate for Tabor purposes, has to only reflect the increase,
Okay.
not the
Okay.
renewal, or else I'm putting the wrong number in.
Okay, good. Well, that helps me understand.
Yeah,
that a
that's
little bit
why
better.
it's done that. Yeah.
All right, thanks. And then I will be supporting this because I would like to see this question go to the voters. And I think with the supportive community on the move, it's very important that we educate our voters, you know, so that they can decide. We've had a lot of street maintenance in the past years, and particularly why I think Glenwood Springs might be different from other cities is because of our topography. We're very narrow. We have a lot of steep valley sides that have over the years have had a lot of debris flow. So our soils are terrible. As anyone who lives in a home here, you can see how much a lot of these homes, new or old, have settled. We have a fairly large historic area downtown that was built on top of those poor soils. So you have roads that were not built to modern standards. They're very old. The water and the sewer that are underneath them are very old, and this takes a lot of cost to try to repair and then build it up to new standards. And we haven't, frankly, been able to keep up. So if we want to have streets that are serve our community better and are not full of potholes and are not crumbling, then we need the money to get that done and to do it well. And I think we have great staff that has estimated the costs to do that and to get us up to a better standard over the next 20-year period. And the current funding that we have, although they've been doing a great job with it, just doesn't quite handle that. So I'm very happy to have community on the move looking at that. Putting the restrictions that we need on this fund, so it's only spent on streets. and existing streets, and I'm in favor of the sunset. So I will support this, and let's put it out to the voters.
Okay. Before, it doesn't seem like I have a ton of other questions. So before, Counselor Godus,
Were you on questions or comments?
comments.
Oh.
There's a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a motion on the table.
You said
So,
questions. So I did-
yeah.
We went back to.
Sorry.
Yeah, to Mr. Vick, I think you need to check your numbers. I don't know where you get those numbers, but I just did a quick, it's called a Google search, and found out that if this takes effect, we will, our total tax rate will go up to 9.1%. That's lower than even just our neighbors of Snowmass Village at 10.4, Aspen at 9.3, Vale at 9.4. Idaho Springs, Silverton, Adams County, Boulder, the super liberal community, Delta, Denver, Eagle, Gunnison, La Plata, Ouray, so on and so forth, all have tax rates that are higher than the 9.1%. So just before you go off on your non-campaign, you might want to research that a little bit more. I do think, some of my comments are that, I think Ingrid had a good request, a fair request of me during the work session. I don't get caught up in small items about, we all decide, we all know we need a car, right? We all know we need funding for the streets, the infrastructure. This community needs it. We don't have taxes any higher than really any other community that is similar to us. We truly don't. And it's within spitting distance of even Rifle. But I think that, it's not about the color of the car. It's about, and not about whether we need the car. I think this is about more than the color of the car. And that's not my opinion. I don't know that if it's really your opinion, but the chamber has said, I'm sorry, the community in the move has said, there's two crucial points that, tourists and non-residents are paying this tax and accounting for this, and that it has a 20-year sunset. So it's a crucial point of what they said. But meanwhile, really all the experts and studies disagree. I have called 4 different election experts, polling firms, Colorado Polling Institute, Turn Corps, Magellan Strategies, and have asked them about a sunset. These are the experts, right? These guys do this dozens of times a year, not half a dozen times in 40 years. And they do it in mountain communities just like ours. And they say this does not matter. It's a political non-factor. One had the comment that those sunset provisions are designed for conservatives who would never vote for any tax increase of any kind because they feel that no tax will ever actually sunset. The electorate never thinks about it. This is a conversation that only seems to happen in city council chambers, and it doesn't help at all. That pollster was, checks and notes, Keith Frederick, our own poster. That's what his quote was about the poll that he did for us. Sunset provisions doesn't matter. It's a political thing that no one actually cares about. So I don't know why we're caring about it so much, other than I care about it because I know, and I look out at the community on the move and the volunteers, and I thank you guys, truly. But you're not going to be around in 15 years when we have to go back to the community again, or in 30 years. Ashley will. Ashley and Ingrid and I and Marco, but that's not something I want to have to repeat. Not when we're polling at 2 to 1, not when we have been told that it does not matter by numerous experts, not when there's no study or evidence that it matters at all. And if this was so important, I don't know why we wouldn't have asked it in the poll, why we wouldn't have simply said, are you more or less likely to, it would have been one question. Are you more or less likely to vote for it? So I question that it was actually that important. I do think sunsets have a place when you have a specific checklist of items like the ANI. We are going to accomplish these 6 items, like our recent ANI, in this amount of time. And if we do it, awesome. And if we don't, the tax expires, you don't get it. So I think it has its place. I even think there's some rationale for a housing or a climate or mental health, something that's very new to the community. But we've passed this tax before. And it's unlike a checklist of items that we can just check off and the community can say we've done it or not. Streets are going to be ongoing. A lot of these streets have been here for 120 years. They will hopefully be here for another 120 years, and they're only going to get more expensive to maintain. So I think it's actually disingenuous and non-transparent to tell the public that we have a 20-year checklist of things we're going to do, and after 20 years, it's kind of done, when this is an ongoing problem that's going to be there forever. I think that right now we have, according to the polling, not according to how we feel when we leave social media, according to the polling, we have city council has a 35% positive rating and a 29% negative. The rest are neutral. I would suggest they probably just don't care. But are we certain in 15 years we're not going to have those numbers significantly different? Are we certain that we won't have a scandal? Are we certain we will not have any kind of massive recession like we just experienced in the last decade? That puts a significant downside risk to the rosy picture of, oh, we'll just ask the voters in 15 years. Well, I can tell you in 15 years, if we have a recession like we did in 2008 to 2013, we won't go back. It'll be incredibly difficult. I appreciate the work that Community on the Move has done, but I think that we need both specificity while removing the complexity of this question. I think the polling question is a great question to ask. I understand we have to have certain things for Tabor and that language, but the complexity of the 25% for, that, like, people don't know or understand 25%. The idea of a sunset, which we know doesn't matter. I think those are the things that we can strip out of this so we can focus on a message in the question so that people can understand what we're actually asking for. I look at statistics, polling facts, and the experts, and the River District, we have a great example. The River District in much more conservative counties in 2020 passed a property tax that passed almost 2-1 with no sunset. They didn't even contemplate a sunset. So I don't know why we are doing this. I will not vote for it. I will not support it.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt and say you don't know why we're doing what?
Why we would
Just-
contemplate, why we would contemplate
Just-
the motion.
The motion specific to the sunset, or the motion to put a ballot question on for a 1 cent?
The motion to put the question on as
Okay.
written, which includes a sunset
Okay,
provision.
but the sunset provision is your biggest concern. I just want to clarify. Okay, thank you.
If you need more clarity, I can go on.
Yeah, no,
Um,
please don't.
If council refers a measure with a sunset provision, I will not support it. If you need more clarity, I can repeat
Thank
that.
you. Okay.
If we don't, I will support it. So I think this council needs to decide whether a unanimous 7-0 vote is more important than having a 20-year sunset that has no political upside and significant political risk and downside. And I will advocate that if it is referred to the ballot tonight with that sunset, I will argue that we do not pass it in November and that we put a measure on in the next April, November, or November of 26. Well, 3 more opportunities to put something more honest and straightforward in front of the electorate that says, we know streets are always going to be an issue and they always need to be funded, and we have a solution. And this is a solution, not a 20-year gotcha, which is, I feel, what these sunsets are. And so I will advocate for delaying that and a defeat of this measure. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in really quickly and do a little storytelling. And that was that when Community on the Move was started, I was probably about 4. Yeah, I know, right? That means that I came here because at that time, my parents didn't live here. My grandparents did. I came here, and I think the contribution I made was as a wonderful and appreciative tourist who came and probably bought a new swimsuit, which my parents paid a tax on, which helped fund Glenwood, and helped create the community that we celebrate so much. So Community on the Move to me has been hugely influential. And I so thank the commitment by the volunteers, because this is not a paid position. This is a group of individuals who have invested time, energy, resources, and incredible knowledge in understanding what is a priority for this community hearing and collaboratively working with the city to recognize needs, and in turn, going out to the community to educate the community about what we believe, what you guys believe is needed. I don't know better about these things. I don't know pollsters. This is not my expertise, nor is street funds. I mean, I look to Matt Langhorse, Public Works Director. Matt, thank you. I look to Steve Boyd for finance. I recognize that with a city council, we are simply community members serving as council members for a time, but there is so much historical knowledge in our community about what the community needs. And so I really honor and respect the recommendation that you have made as written. I think it's steeped in experience and success. I know that in 40 years, you've had a lot more success stories. I would say disproportionately success stories. And I hope for the good of the community that this too is a success story. I will be supporting this. And I think a piece that's really important here is to recognize that if you look at our economy and you look at our budget, the majority of money we receive, I mean, it's all tax driven, but it's driven a lot because we've been a tourist community since the late 1800s. And that's not going to change. And so the tourists who I so value that come to, the visitors to our community, they drive our roads, they stay at our hotels, they flush toilets and take showers, and they eat at our restaurants that in turn wash their dishes. And they do make an impact on our services here in this community. I don't want to suck it to them, but the reality is I also recognize that our community is also aging, and we have a lot of people who are on fixed incomes. So when, to Mr. Vick's point, you might find that some communities don't rely on an infrastructure tax or a street tax. Those same communities might have higher water and sewer, just fees that the general public pays in order to make sure that the pipes under their streets are fixed and kept up. I don't know the details on that because once again, I will say that I am simply a community member serving as council. I listen to the experts in the room. I lean into my dentist who is an expert in dentistry. I lean into, the financial planner who helps me because he has an expertise in this. So when people come to me and say, this is for the good of the community, we dug into this. There are experts who have vetted this information. I'm going to lean into this and I'm going to support this measure. So thank you all. I'm going to run through here, make sure that everybody else on council has been heard, and then we'll go ahead and vote on this. So Councilor Zelinski.
Yeah, I'm just going to be super brief. Same. I don't speak to what other communities are doing. I am only responsible to this community. And I have seen the budget, I've seen the needs, I've seen, the forecast of the future. And so I do agree with everybody else that this is a valuable, valid ask. I think there is some value in the sunset. I think that our staff does good work. I think that there is good faith. I think we can count on the community to continue to recognize that. And if support is needed in the future, I believe that they will. I don't think this is dishonest or disingenuous. We're not claiming this is like a 20-year one and done. I don't think that's the message. We're just saying like, this is a plan to revisit it and we can have faith in the community down the road. I don't think it's a risk. I don't think I have to hedge my bets against some future scandal or, malappropriation. So, I appreciate all of the thought that's gone into it, the emphasis on the transparency and accountability. I'm not worried about the future if we do pass it. I'm much more worried about the future if we don't pass it.
Councilor Schechter.
Did Councilor Weimer want to talk? I've already had one shot. Do you want a shot? Well, I will say once again, and I don't like doing this on dice. I'm very disappointed in my fellow councilors' comments because I believe, Councilor Godus, you are almost perseverating on a personal opinion, whether it's backed or not, on one aspect, your opinion and your feelings about sunsetting when we have got contrary views, but more importantly, it sounds like to me, you'd be willing to risk 20 years of success for your point of view, where the rest of us in the community on the move is presenting us with a history of success and trust and well-being. And I feel actually very sad and hurt about that, because I think it undermines the dynamics, even though everybody up here is entitled to their own opinion. So I will not be amending the motion nor diminishing my support. Thank you.
I'm going to let Counselor Godus respond. I always feel like that's appropriate when someone is acknowledged that they have an opportunity.
I appreciate it. Sumner, I'm disappointed and saddened that you would make this personal against me. It's not personal towards Community on the Move, to the leaders, to anybody on this council. I don't think it's disingenuous by intent. I think the voters will perceive it as that way. So I would appreciate in the future if you could leave your personal feelings about my intentions out of it. I have given I emailed an article that backed this up, a scholarly article. I have given you expert opinions. And if you want to disagree with me, Councilor Shatner, you're more than welcome to do that. But I have not attacked anybody. I have not disparaged anybody. The only disparaging or attacking that happened tonight was in your comment. And I would appreciate it if I could have a voice and I could have a vote that maybe is contrary to yours without you being saddened and disappointed in a personal way by it.
Counselor Weimer, let's wrap this one up.
So I will say, Counselor Godus, I think in the working session, you had me really thinking about the sunset provision. And I was on the fence for a while and really kind of thinking through, is this sort of should this become sort of status quo, for the next 20 years and just sort of implement this as sort of a permanent thing, or does it need revisiting? And I think it's a fascinating and kind of interesting piece to talk about or to think about. And I'll tell you that where I've landed is that the sunset is a good thing, because, and my opinion is simply it allows the public an additional tool to hold council and the city accountable for how we're using their money, and versus something that's permanent and would have to go through sort of a special process for repealing and that sort of a thing. It allows us to go out to ask for a finite sort of resource for a defined purpose, and then to be held to account over the course of that, in this case, 20 years, that we've done the proper and responsible thing with that fund, because then we're going to have to go back and ask for it again. And if we didn't hold up our end of the bargain in that process, shame on us. And two, it should necessarily be more difficult to go back to the well and ask for that money. And then I also think that in 20 years, no one has any idea, one could predict there won't be such a thing as roads in 20 years, right? We'll be Jetsons kind of floating around. Nobody has any sort of idea what the demand will be, what the requirements will be, what our responsibilities and sort of agenda will be. And it also gives us that opportunity to kind of come back and say, all right, well, now it's 2044 or 2040. We're getting ready for 2044. Let's think about what this next sort of round needs to look like, and what are we asking for, and what are we expecting of the population here, of the citizens. So totally respect where you're coming from and how you're thinking, and your adamant sort of push for it. You had me for a while, really sort of, you challenged me, right, to think about it, which is a good job, like on everyone's part, to challenge each other. You challenged me, and my own sort of personal process is where kind of what I just laid out and where I've landed. So
Thank you. And I will also extend that, Jonathan. Thank you for digging in. Thank you everyone up here for taking this question so seriously and recognizing that how influential it can be on the future of Glenwood. So with that in mind, I'm going to call the question.
Counselor Gotis.
We're doing it one at a time.
You want us to do it one at a
God, I'm sorry.
Maybe.
Okay.
All right, well, let me hit
Oh
a
my
button.
gosh, there's a lot of
Take
giggles
a
up
lot
here
out of
tonight.
my job. All right, here we go. It passes 6-1.
Thank you so much. Thank you all this morning, this evening. Yeah. Nope, sorry. I mean, really, truly, I can't allow it. We closed that section of the agenda. You know, I love to hear from you though. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
to the most patient kids in the room, it's time for your dad to come on up.
Finally.
Right. We were thinking the same thing.
Future city council, right?
Ooh, it worked. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Ben Ludlow, Rafted Capital Projects Program Manager, and I'm here to give you an update on the 27th Street and Highway 82 Underpasses project. This project's currently nearing completion with a projected early finish and within budget. These progress photos here on the screen are the corner of Highway 82 and 27th Street at the BRT station, showing our snowmelt tubing in the ramp area at the tunnel entrance on the east side. Here we see the snowmelt installation on the east side of Highway 82 at the BRT station, along with a new sidewalk at the station entrance there here in the bottom left-hand corner near Alpine Tire. Sidewalks around the station are nearing completion. The guardrail installation has been completed, and the remaining items include landscaping, snow fence, pedestrian fencing, all of which will be occurring over the next few weeks. These photos are neat ones. They are the west side of the Highway 82 Underpass Plaza area, showing the at-grade exit towards the school district bus facility. You'll notice the photo on the right. When you walk out of the tunnel, you're at grade, you're not in a hole. These photos here on the west side of Highway 82 Underpass Plaza are showing the architectural concrete work in the plaza area on the Rio Grande Trail. Rio Grande Trail comes in. You can kind of see we have the stamped concrete banding throughout. This is the west side of Highway 82, which is the new route for the Rio Grande Trail, showing our sidewalk concrete features in progress. The architectural concrete in the plaza shown in these photos is nearing completion. Here's some progress photos of the construction of the north half of the 27th Street underpass. This was a photo from a while ago. Currently, all backfill, sidewalk connection, utilities, and grading of 27th Street is nearing completion, with paving of 27th Street occurring next week. This is a really cool panoramic, kind of shows the Rio Grande Trail approach towards the Highway 82 underpass and 27th Street tunnels on the southwest side. Timeline for the remainder of this project. Everyone's excited about this, right? Final configuration of 27th Street and the traffic shift will be at the end of August. All traffic will be back to normal on Highway 82 and 27th Street, including acceleration, deceleration modes. In September, we'll have completion of the pedestrian components and landscaping. We have a project substantial completion in mid-October. Unfortunately, we were going to make it before October, but our stairs on the east portal have been quite challenging from our steel fabricator. And here's the big news. I am currently, actually tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., start the kickoff to coordinate a grand opening celebration with our elected officials, including CDOT, Federal Highway Administration.
Federal Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration. Senator Bennett has confirmed he will be here. We're waiting on Senator Hickenlooper and other elected officials, along with my best friends at City of Glenwood Springs and RAFTA, for RAFTA board and employees. So October 15th, there'll be more details to come, but our first kickoff for this event is 9 a.m. tomorrow. Should be, everyone's gonna ask Ben what to do. All right. And then I just here at the end, I want to, again, I say this every time I'm up here, a huge thank you to the incredible support that I get from the City of Glenwood Springs, the Public Works Department, Engineering, Police Department, and the traveling public as always. And a big thanks to Myers and Sons Construction and their subcontractors for a successful project to date. And as we near completion, we'll have public announcements about openings of elements of the project, such as Rio Grande Trail, underpasses, and pedestrian connections. I am at the end of my presentation. What questions do you have for me, council?
So well done. Any questions from council? Or see, we're all talked out. That's probably what you wanted. I know you're like, yes. Just a huge thank you. You guys have persevered. It has not been easy. I think the hardest part of it is probably not the project, but the public comment and feedback. That is, it's been a journey, and you guys have hung in there. I feel like your communication has been solid throughout it. So thank you for staying the course, and we look forward to celebrating the end.
October 15th. Don't
Yep.
go on vacation.
Yeah, well done. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
guys,
you.
for hanging in there.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, moving on to item number 16. This is resolution 2024-26, adoption of the energy and climate action plan of the 2024 action plan.
I can kick this one off really quick,
Great.
Madam Mayor. I actually feel really good about this project. There were a lot of people involved. Councilor Kaut was involved along the way. We appreciate that. All of our department heads were involved. We had a standing meeting every other week for months now to get through it. And I just wanted to thank a couple of people. I work with a lot of consultants, and Blue Strike did their job in this. They did what they said they were going to do. They know their stuff, and they were really good to work with. I hate it that she's here because I don't like saying nice things to people when they're in the room, but I'm going to do it anyway. Heather McGregor was part of this group, and sometimes we have a resident that, joins a group like this, and they're usually pretty helpful. I think Heather was particularly helpful in this. I mean, she brought a really good perspective to it. She paid attention. She's really good with the details. So thank you for that. So with that, I will turn it over to the person that managed the project on our end, Jim Hardcastle, and he can introduce the Blue Strike team.
Thank you very much. Jim Hardcastle, Community Development Long Range Principal Planner. As Steve mentioned, project manager, but I was at I should say I was really honored to be part of this project. I think that's probably a better way to say it. And online this evening, we have the exceptional crew from Blue Strike Environmental, Rich Swanson, Andrea Green. They'll be presenting to you. We also have Christina Matzel and Zelenka Pivic from Clear. Morgan Hill, who is not here this evening, was also very instrumental in what we have done. And Heather McGregor, dedicated, knowledgeable, and highly competent, and was more than anything early on, at least 16 months ago when we first started this, my partner in helping push out the RFP and just a go-to person all along. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Rich and Andrea.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim. I think Andrea is going to share her screen with some slides. And while she's doing that,
if the I think it's the lectern guests could unshare their screen, I'll go ahead and share mine. Perfect. Thank you.
While she's doing that, Jim, thank you. And Steve, thank you very much for your kind words. As mentioned, my name is Rich Swanson. I'm from Blue Strike, the consultancy hired by the City of Glenwood Springs to help with the development of an updated energy and climate action plan that is specific to the city's municipal operations. And so we're very grateful to have some time to present what we've been working on along with a project operations team, whom you met, a few of them, the consultancy Clear, a steering team of facility managers, and many of the city's staff. And it has really been an honor to work with each one of them. And so tonight we are delivering the 2024 updated Energy and Climate Action Plan to the City Council. Also delivered on time and at budget. And so if you go to the next slide, this is just an introduction of a few of the people who worked so hard on this. Jim has already introduced us, so I won't belabor that, but a couple of the Clear staff are in the room and will be making some brief comments in just a minute. If we can go to the next slide, when we began this project about a year ago, we had a few goals in mind as we started. One was to build on the city's significant achievements in climate action to date. A second goal was to create an ambitious and impactful plan for reducing emissions. A third was to identify cost savings opportunities for the city, both short and long term where possible. And then also to develop a detailed and comprehensive implementation plan that would accompany the strategies that were developed. And finally, to align the updated ECAP with existing plans so that it would be very integrated into what's already going on there in Glenwood Springs. So if we move to the next slide, of course, a very important part of the process was to develop an emissions inventory for the city operations, which you can see on the right-hand panel of this slide. The focus here, you'll notice from the title, is emissions apart from the South Canyon landfill. The inventory in the plan is actually offered both with and without the landfill, but certain targets have been set apart from the landfill, and I can explain some reasons in the Q&A for that if you're interested. One important message that I don't want to pass over is the very significant emissions savings that the city has already achieved through the decision to purchase 100% renewable electricity. You can see here that that decision alone saved city operations over 2,000 tons of CO2 equivalents annually. Another very important part of the process was our stakeholder engagement component, which Andrea is going to describe.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. So just to quickly review what we shared during our last presentation to City Council, we did conduct an online survey of city staff to gauge their familiarity with existing sustainability programs and initiatives, and to learn where there might be opportunities for efficiency improvements. We also held a series of 5 focus groups to more specifically inform strategy development for the ECAP, and each focus group addressed one of the 5 framework categories, which I will touch on shortly. And then finally, we interacted periodically with the steering committee and City Council as well to get their specific feedback on the project's progress. So to revisit that 5-point framework that we introduced during our last presentation, I will just note that waste management was formerly resource conservation in our last presentation. The project team agreed to change this category to encompass just solid waste and landfill management. We saw that that was more fitting once the plan was more developed. And then the project team ultimately agreed to set a municipal emissions reduction target of 60% by 2035 compared to a 2022 baseline. And I will note that this does not include emissions from the landfill, as Rich touched on, and that a specific target for landfill emissions will be set at a later date. So this target is in line with scientific guidelines and the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to pass it back to Rich.
Thanks, Andrea. So the core element of the updated ECAP is to present strategies for reducing emissions and energy use. And this is an overview for how those strategies were developed. Last October, we did a tour of the city facilities. We also aggregated and condensed all the city's existing plans into a table format and a place to review. We did a quantitative and qualitative input, or received a qualitative and quantitative input from stakeholder engagement activities that Andrea just referenced. And then we combined those sort of strategies and initiatives with a best practice list that has been observed from regional peers and other nationwide climate action leaders. We culled that into a series of strategies that the staff could vet. So we set up a voting system where they could vote on those and then have a follow-up discussion. And then finally, there was a final review and prioritization by the steering committee, which are the department heads and staff. And I want to talk we want to talk just a bit about some of the specific examples for the end of that process. So under each of the framework pillars that Andrea mentioned, several goals and strategies and then actions were developed. So for example, here you can see a goal of reducing city employee commuting emissions over time and a strategy of creating incentives and opportunities to use alternative forms of transportation moving forward. Then you see a series of recommended action steps that are designed to support that strategy. And this same format is repeated for all 5 strategies. We've just illustrated a couple of them here. So to highlight the energy category, I will pass it to Zuleika.
Thanks, Rich. So there are 3 goals in the energy category. And briefly, this isn't how they're written out. Increasing renewables, reducing peak demand, and continuing energy conservation and energy efficiency programming through the city. There's within each of those goals, there's multiple strategies, and then again, plentiful actions to be taken. For example, in goal 3, the continuing energy conservation, energy efficiency efforts among electric customers. The strategy here is to work across customer sectors to promote conservation, which is to use less, and efficiency, to use wisely. Specifically, one of the actions is to continue to work with us at Clear on providing rebates and other incentives to reduce electric consumption for Glenwood Springs residents. And I will pass it over to Christina.
So the building's goals all actively support energy efficiency and energy use reductions. Strategy 2.2 here and its action steps are supported by the Advanced Energy Management Program. AEM uses 15-minute interval data on the buildings to actively monitor what they're using and provide support for facility managers to achieve their efficiency goals. AEM is a service that the city receives as a part of its longstanding membership in Garfield Clean Energy. And just as a reminder, Garfield Clean Energy is a collaborative of all the municipalities in Garfield County, in addition to the county government, RAFTA, CMC, and also has affiliate memberships from Holy Cross and the Library District. GCE contracts with Clear to operate its programs and provide support to members. The strategies and goals in this ECAP all align closely with GCE's Energy Action Plan goals and strategies. So as the city moves into implementation, it can leverage AEM and the other programs from GCE for to support city staff in implementing the action steps outlined in this ECAP. And I'll hand it back over to Rich to go over the implementation.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. So the updated ECAP closes with an implementation plan that looks a bit like this. And I just want to draw your attention to that very top row. For every strategy that has been recommended, you can see there's a lead department, a measure of the emissions impact potential, and also a recommended start and completion year. What's not pictured here, but is part of an online annex that is delivered with the plan called the tracker, are an estimated cost and suggestion for funding for each strategy. And Andrea, I think you have the last couple of slides.
Yes, thank you, Rich. So the final report went through several review periods. The project team reviewed several iterations of the final plan, and then the steering committee and members of Clear staff and key city staff were also asked to review the plan and provide feedback. This feedback was then directly integrated into the plan, and Blue Strike's graphic designer then took that final step and developed the stylized document that you all been provided in your packets. So looking to the future for Glenwood Springs, We want to ensure that the city is well equipped to not only implement the course of action outlined in the ECAP, but continue to measure your progress against the 2024 plan. The project team developed a subset of action items to address this specifically, and this includes updating the municipal GHG inventory annually, and Blue Strike is scoped to provide a training to a city staff member to take this on. And additionally, this includes maintaining automated data collection systems and updating the implementation plan to ultimately review the ECAP annually. So with that, this concludes our presentation. It's been a pleasure to get to know your community, work alongside Clear and many of the folks at the city. And we're excited to see what the future holds with this plan. We can take any questions now.
Bring it back to council for any questions. Do we have questions about the plan? Counselor Schachter.
Would you mind just addressing briefly, obviously, the elephant in the room, what lies ahead for the landfill that is about 90%, I believe, of our emissions that you mentioned? So what will happen there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're exactly right. The South Canyon landfill is a huge portion of what would sort of be scoped within the city's emissions, considered part of the city's emissions. We left that out of the target setting for a couple reasons. One, the state is currently working on some guidance and some programming that we think will be quite beneficial for landfill management over time. Secondly, and some of that guidance is still being developed. And so what we did is we put in the plan an action step to revisit and and start the conversation of setting targets in a couple of years. Secondly, right now the landfill is undergoing a couple of measurements, a methane measurement and a couple other studies that are happening right there at the landfill that will give a lot more information as to the actual emissions. We used calculated emissions in our inventory that's in the plan. And so for those reasons, we kept the target setting separate. Although there are action steps in there about, several activities around solid waste and particularly solid waste delivery to the landfill from the city of Glenwood Springs.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open up to public comment to see if we have any comments or questions or just general thoughts. Anybody from the community that wants to come up, you're more than welcome to come up one at a time. Come up, you got 3 minutes. State your name. I see some hands. There we go. Thank you. You can just let us know your name and if you live in city limits, even if we do know your name and live in city limits.
My name is John Houghton. I live in city limits. Longtime emailer, first time public commenter. So I appreciate the time. And I appreciate the time that the staff has put into this report. There are just a couple items that I think deserve some additional consideration in the report. What stood out to me the most was figure 11 on page 27 of this report. It appears to show us not hitting that 6% reduction until 2037 or 2038. So there seems to be a misalignment. That figure is labeled best case scenario. So perhaps either we need to be more aggressive or that figure is not the most up to date. There seems to be a well, not too large, but a relatively large emphasis on solar. I'm curious if that is perhaps a little misplaced when it's not backed up. I don't know if mean can even use solar that's not backed up. If that's even helpful from a grid standpoint. And when I say backed up, I mean there's batteries on site or some sort of community battery. I know that is also a part of the plan. It's just separated out from the solar requirements, which I think deserves some consideration. The plan seems to expand into some areas like building code and EV charging, incentives for solar on private residences, pre-wiring of commercial structures. that stuff is frankly out of our hands. When next time you open up the building code, you will have to adopt that, whether you want to or not. That's from the state. And then a quarter of the emissions are from employing commuting, and there's no discussion of our land use patterns in this report that I could tell. I didn't read every sentence, I'll admit. But I think the easiest trip to eliminate, vehicle trip to eliminate, is one that isn't taken, right? If employees can live where they work, that 25% shrinks, I would guess, pretty dramatically. And I think, I understand it's a can of worms, but no mention of land use patterns, I think, is a glaring omission. That's all. Thanks for the time. And again, I appreciate what we're doing here, and I think it's an important process.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. We appreciate it. Anyone else here to discuss the climate action plan wants 3 minutes at the podium? Heather McGregor.
Heather McGregor, Glenwood Springs resident, participant in this project, and I also helped write the original climate action plan back in 2008, 2009. So it's really great to work with a professional team this time rather than just me and Marilee and Ann and the other folks that helped us at the time. So we had a great team of consultants, and they worked really well together. And that was really important because Clear is the on the grounds people that are going to be carrying out, working with staff to deliver a lot of these changes and upgrades. And then, you know, the staff was just so enthused about this program. They just seemed to be just so engaged and positive about it. And I just have to give kudos to Steve, Matt, Jim, and Rod, and then to the department heads, Liz, Warren, Doug, Ethan, Dan, Hannah, and Brianna. They just introduced their own ideas. They brought their own observations to the table and gave us a few reality checks. And they now stand ready to do the heavy lifting. And this is really important. We need to do our part to make a difference with climate change. And I think that this plan, you know, while it has a few flaws and shortcomings, we can work on that. We're going to revisit it every single year. And there'll be an opportunity to bump up targets, add new goals, add new strategies and action steps as things evolve and the world changes. So thank you very much. And I urge you to approve the plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Do we have any other comments? Anybody online? Okay, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to bring it back to council for a motion. Councilor Kell.
I would like to make a motion. Very happy to make this motion to approve resolution 2024-26 for the city of Glenwood Springs, adopting the Energy and Climate Action Plan. And I'd like to say thank you to the consultants and to everyone involved in the process, Heather and Clear and staff, certainly staff, for all the input. As part of that resolution, I would like to just add, and I'm not sure exactly how to do this, but I would like to add that implementation and accountability for the climate action plan be part of the deliverables of our city manager and our department heads. So I think that's shouldn't be a problem as an adopted plan of the city, but I'd like to have that be part of the motion.
Okay. And do I have a second? Counselor Zelinski, your light is on.
Well, because I was gonna second it, but I'm not, it's the addendum that I'm like now stuck on. I don't.
Do you need clarification?
I need clarification. That's what I was
Can
gonna
you
ask.
elaborate on
So
your?
my motion is just to adopt the climate action plan, resolution 2024-26, and just clarifying that the implementation and action items on the plan be you know, part of the deliverables for our city manager.
So I think
accountable, it's just accountability that I want to.
I think what she's asking for is that you take onus in making sure that planning and zoning receives a copy of it, department heads receive a copy of it, and maybe you create some regular, quarterly or biannual implementation where you review it and say, are we meeting these?
It's just, right. it's
Am I
just
getting there?
Adding
Okay.
that follow-up
Okay.
there because a lot of, plans can get adopted and put on shelves. And,
Yeah.
and I think our staff
Mhm.
have no intention of doing this, but we may not be here in 5 to 10 years. And this adds just an extra bit of, yes, we are adopting this and we're going to do this.
So I have a motion. I don't have a second yet, but before I get a second, looks like there's people down here might want to second it. Are you cool with that? Do you see any concerns with an implement like this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, if you guys pass this resolution, it's basically a directive to me
Great.
to carry forward and implement it. So
Excellent.
we would
Exactly. And
Okay.
it's,
do this
if
in any
it's
case.
not meant as anything different, I just would love it to be part of the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'm lit up by, let's see, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think what I'm understanding it to mean, so I understand, Mike, make sure my second aligns with yours is,
Okay.
I mean, yes, it's a directive, but when I worked at the city of Aspen as a assistant director of recreation, this was one of the components of my 7 charges on every annual review. So it is on my performance evaluation. I don't know if you're going that far where every department head is responsible for this as a part of their review, or simply we check in and get an update. So I guess I'd like clarification on, is this something that's going to be accountable from department head and city manager in their performance reviews?
I think that's partly written into this plan.
Okay.
As part of the action items and the leads on them. And I'm just adding just an extra sentence to the motion to make sure there's that follow-up.
Then I'll second that.
Yeah.
Great. So I have a motion. I have a second. I can call the question, but I do have Counselor Schachter's light. Let's go ahead, Counselor.
I'll be a little brief. I was impressed. I'm extremely pleased, as I am often, that there is a well fleshed out goal, strategy, and action plan. And also, which I think is critical, and it ties to what the motion and second are, it has an analysis of cost and benefit. And again, I rely on management. When we're sitting here about budget, I'm going to emphasize 1s over 3s, definitely, but I'm just re-emphasizing that I think it's already built into the plan. The motion shouldn't affect it either way, and I'm very pleased with that part of the plan. Thank you.
Well, I want to just make sure that we express one last time the gratitude to everybody who did this. Mayor Lee and Heather, I remember when you guys came to us the very first meeting, and it's always really refreshing when we come to fruition, we complete what we want to get done. And I look forward to seeing it implemented further. I know that we have done. I think that we saw some successes when we did this, where we recognized that Public Works, landfill, there are departments that have already been implementing a lot of these goals. So to have some structure to it, the CLEAR staff, thank you so much. We so appreciate everybody who has contributed to this. Thank you all so much. This is not even for us. This is for our children. This is for the future of our community. So thanks for that commitment. With that, I'm going to call the question.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Have a great night. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move forward and we're going to do item number 17. This is an ordinance 2024-16. This is an annual budget amendment. After this, we'll do it for second quarter supplemental appropriations.
Good evening, council. Each year we pass a budget for the following year in November. And several times throughout the year, we do an amendment to that budget for things that weren't in the budget originally or things that were in the budget for 2023 and carried forward to 2024. So I think that you guys are generally aware of all of these. This is just mostly housekeeping and our third amendment of the year.
I'm going to ask council if they have any questions. gonna ask the community if the community has any questions. Open it to public comment. Anyone online? I'm gonna close public comment. I'm gonna bring it back to council for a motion. Counselor Dem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In ordinance 2024-16, annual budget amendment for second quarter supplemental appropriation, I would move that we approve this ordinance.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, and we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Thanks so much.
Thank you, council.
Okay, we are back in session. Just a little time check. It's about 10 after 8. We're gonna jump right in with another ordinance. This is ordinance 2024-17. This is a penalty change for Bear Code offenses. I believe that someone is, oh,
Yeah, we actually just had the discussion while you were finishing the last item, who was actually presenting. Nobody likes the attorney. What you have before you is an amendment to 100, 100. We're finding two things. One, that we maybe need to be a little more aggressive in our penalty assessments, as we're not getting the point across this year. And the other one is we're finding that there are, particularly in commercial and multifamily settings that are not part of the pay as you throw program, that maybe we need to be, kind of ratchet that up, because it's just sort of a different cost benefit analysis for those users. So that's why you have the changes in place. Realistically, we had left the, just one quick note, we had left section 3, the effective date, blank. I think we can just use October 1st, which will be roughly when the ordinance would otherwise be effective. We're trying to get this done a little bit sooner. The bears are probably going to be gone by the time it's effective. So it's really going to, it's really going to be next spring, unfortunately. But it sets us up for a better year next year and a few more tools. So with that, happy to answer any questions, or
Councilor Dunn.
Lieutenant Hassel's here, or Matt can fill in the details.
Just real quick, Carl, to clarify, this is just for commercial and multifamily properties
major
that are
change-
not in the pay-as-you-throw program.
The higher fines are, we are moving first offense up from $50 to $200 for everybody. Because there again, we're just finding we're not really getting the kind of compliance that we need.
So pay-as-you-throw, everybody.
Everybody is in that category. There is a separate section for not in the pay-as-you-throw program, which really means certain multifamilies and commercial can't be part of a franchise program like that. But those are typically users, and Matt can give this more description of this. Oftentimes those are users with large dumpsters and things like that. And so it seems more appropriate to have a more aggressive fine schedule to deal with those larger, larger problems, if you will.
And is it still 3 strikes until you go to court?
No, this is, if you want to challenge it, you can go to court. You get 2 strikes, and on the 3rd, it's a summons into court to talk to the judge.
Did you guys talk about maybe not give 3 strikes? Shorten the warning, if you will?
On the commercial use side, it's $1,000, $2,000.
That's pretty hefty.
That's pretty hefty. I'm actually probably, I'd probably rather have those set fines on those first, because I think, even our court is much like you guys. They tend to be very community gentle.
Right.
This is maybe an area we want to be a little more aggressive.
Okay, thank you.
And make sure that they are aware that is the preference. So, Councilor Cap.
I'm just curious, how many warnings do people get before they get their first fine? Because I think again, and it's appreciated that our service officers out there they try to explain to people and educate and get a bear-proof trash can and that kind of thing. But I'm just wondering, how does that work? Is it really first offense, or is it first time after you've been warned and told you need to get a bear-proof?
Yeah, thank you, Council.
Okay.
So our position right now is it's really zero tolerance. We have done the last several years of, we give you a warning, then we give you a $50 fine, then a $500 fine, and then a summons into court.
Okay.
Right now, I believe we've had to euthanize 2 bears this year.
Okay.
By the Parks and Wildlife.
Okay.
And by our message out, I think, is our warning to the community. And with a change in fees, we can include that in, this is a warning for next year, because it's going to go up to $200. Now, granted, if they get a fine on the first time and they go out and purchase a bear resistant trash can, I believe the courts are waiving the fee and taking that back. So that would be the same thing for the $200 fine.
Great. Okay. I think that would be great news for us to get out, that we've had to euthanize 2 bears and that how important this is. And this is why we're taking this action.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Me too. Did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I just waiting
just-
for the questions.
Oh, okay. Counselor Gotis.
Sorry, I was looking at bear videos I took. These fines are only for trash cans that have already been pilfered by the bears, correct?
There is language in the ordinance that says if you leave your trash can out, you could be subject to a ticket as well, even if a bear doesn't get into it.
So is it the same? So what I'm asking is when my neighbor, not this one, leaves a trash can out, are they subject to the same first offense $1,000 fine, even if a bear doesn't get into it, or is there a different fee schedule?
No, you're looking at the commercial one. So.
Oh,
you're-
sorry. Okay, sorry.
So it would be the $200 if you, yeah.
Sure. Okay, so the question still, I'm sorry, but the still question remains is that would in theory code enforcement come by like 11 o'clock at night, see a trash can out and go, no bear's gotten into it yet, but it is proactively, whatever, baiting a bear or something, $250. Do we proactively enforce or do we reactively enforce, I guess is my question.
Both. We,
okay.
we're actually about 60% proactively enforcing, where our code enforcement are going out in the alleyways, in the subdivisions and looking for trash.
That's great. Thank
And
you.
then they're tracking down the owners of that property and then citing them as appropriate.
Awesome.
Could, in theory, if someone has their trash can out, yes, they could be cited for that. Really, we're trying to get compliance. We're trying to get people to have bear-proof, bear-resistant cans. I use that term loosely because no can is bear-proof that they sell in the market right now. So we're trying to get compliance.
I have a self-serving question. Yeah, I'm asking it. So on our trash gets picked up and we leave it out in front of the garage until we put trash in it, and then we put it in the garage once it has trash in it. Does that matter?
It's technically under the ordinance. I think it still reads that if your trash can is
Okay.
out, I mean, we're reasonable people
Yeah.
knowing that if you have a trash can out and there's no trash in it,
Yeah.
a bear's probably not going to mess with it.
They don't, I have video that says that they just go up to it and then they keep walking.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, because I live on one of the
Yeah.
most problematic alleys in
Uh-huh.
town. That the work code enforcement has done has helped a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us have cans because we don't have any place else. We have cans out. Most of us just don't put any
Yeah.
trash in it until the morning of.
That's right.
And my sense of it is, since I haven't gotten a ticket, is that code enforcement is cognizant of that fact and recognizes,
Okay.
you know, the individual situation.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. I try really hard up here not to ask self-serving questions, but every once in a while they slip out. Yeah, absolutely. So then my next question for you is I talked to John Collins today and he said that's how historically they were doing it, is that if someone gets, a ticket and they come in and they say, look, here's my receipt. I bought a bear-proof or bear-resistant can. He did say that he's not sure how to handle it now with waste management or with mountain waste. So I'm curious, what that, they still can have.
I mean, I think from my standpoint is, if I were sitting in that prosecutor's shoes, I'd just be looking for evidence that they had ordered a bear resistant.
And that's just the
container.
call to the city. I think John needs that update.
Okay,
great,
we'll see if
thank
we
you.
can't get that info.
Okay, cool. Okay, Counselor Schechter.
I also talked with John and I think maybe some PR that says, look, he can still do the same thing. Maybe let the public know ahead of time, hey, $17 a month you'll be saving. It's worth going right now before you're cited to go get a bear-proof bear-proof can from Pay As You Throw if you haven't already. That's an easy number. The other one, I have a question. I notice on the ordinance, it says owner, occupant, or any person with responsibility. I was out the other day and one of our code officers were on Blake and there was trash in the alley and I pulled up and she had noted it. And it was a weekend. She said, she said, thank you. It's going to take me after the weekend to track down the owner of the property. This says the occupant. Can they not cite the renter? If they, I mean, that seemed to be a quandary and it placed a big burden on the code officer. How do we deal with that?
So we do have means to locate either occupants or owners through our systems. I will say that typically we go to the occupant to identify because we can find their trash in there. If they tell us that they are a renter and that they are not the owner, we will ask for that information and then we will try to cite the owner.
But if the renter's the one leaving the trash out, are they not the ones that should be cited by the code? That's my question, and making it easier.
Yeah, I think part of the push is to get these bear resistant cans, which would fall on the landlord's responsibility because they are the ones that provide the trash cans. Is that?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the situation.
Right.
Right. I
Okay.
mean, I think there again, thinking about my alley, we have some multifamily that I think the landlords provide trash service as part of it. There are some renters like myself who provide our own. So I think it's just, you know, and there again, I think code enforcement does a good job of trying to suss out who the appropriate person is to be citing. Because certainly if the tenant doesn't have control over their situation, that is very different, right?
Counselor Zelinski.
So I'm thinking downtown commercial use, mainly restaurants and such. So that means that they have to have the beer bar kind of locked down. Okay. It's just
That's it.
It is.
Sounds good.
I just,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Perfect. Any additional questions from council? And then I'm going to open it up to questions from the community. Anybody here for council comments? Come on up. All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Gary Vick, 614 Cowden. I just had a question for you. I live over in the Cowden neighborhood. In fact, I think I've seen you over there a couple of times. And a lot of the homes in that area don't have enclosed. Most homes have bear-proof containers, but they don't have enclosures to put them in. So are we required now to put them in a enclosure or garage or build some sort of structure for that? Okay, good. I just want to clarify that.
If you have the bear resistant.
Yeah, and I noticed in the code years ago, if I leave a basket full of apples on my porch at night, I'm in trouble. And just a funny little story, my neighbor's got a plum tree right by the river. And it's pretty much not there anymore after Mama Bear and two cubs went and knocked every single plum and half the branches off that tree the other night. So I don't know if at some point council wants to consider, it's one thing to have a fruit basket on your porch, but if you open up a Walmart or City Market with a plum tree on the river, that's okay. I don't know. So, thank you.
Any additional questions, comments, community? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment section for that. Bring it back to council for a motion. Councilor Dunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In ordinance 2024-17, penalty change for bear code offenses, I would move that we approve such ordinance.
Councilor Kell.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Great. We're going to move on to a Southbridge update. Ryan, you've been waiting all night for this.
Evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Yes, the Southbridge update. Should be relatively quick, but we are starting to kind of move along. Firstly, we have finalized the contract with Jacobs and executed that, so all those documents and contracts are in place. Furthermore, on the design, Jacobs is starting to start and ramp up, looking at certain elements. In fact, we were out this week doing the last and final geotechnical borings for the last elements that we're changing. So we should have basically all the information we have to complete most of the design. Furthermore, we had a couple good fruitful discussions with CDOT. One was to discuss the right-of-way process and clarify what we need moving forward. So we have that in place. We understand what are our requirements for both permanent right-of-way acquisitions and the temporary ones for construction. We've also had a good discussion with CDOT to talk about What are some potential opportunities to do some slight revisions to the design along Highway 82 to help bring some costs down? They're going to get back with us on reactions to those suggestions. And we are starting to move forward with additional discussions with Holy Cross. We're trying to finalize the IGA in our advanced construction letter with FHWA and CDOT to get that in place. And then again, once we understand some of these ideas, we're going to get going with the right-of-way process and the design overall in general. So that is the quick and dirty update for Southbridge. And so any questions, comments?
Any questions? Well, it doesn't look like there's any from council. Anybody in the community have questions, comments? Oh, look, someone online. Meryl? I don't see a name up or a hand. Oh, there we go. Meryl. Yay. Okay. I was wondering if you were going to join us, Meryl. We'll go ahead and have our people in the back. Yep. Get her going up. Meryl, we cannot hear you quite yet.
Yep. Here
Oh,
you
now we
go.
can. Yep.
Okay, well, I just have some questions about the transportation studies, for Ryan, when they're being completed and if they're already done, when the neighbors will be surveyed. And I also wanted to know, because I did call CDOT because I am, as you all know, very interested in this and really, really feel that traffic is going to be enormous. And I can't help it. There's nothing that leads me to believe that it won't be. If we are able to get a wall, will people in the survey know that we can get a variance and not have a 12-foot wall? Because at the meeting that we had with Ryan, it left the impression that it was a 12-foot wall or not. So I called CDOT because I wanted to make sure that I was wrong about that. And I was wrong about that. You can create a variance, and I wanted the council and to share with Ryan that my guess from talking to people in the neighborhood is that people wouldn't want a big wall, but they might really, really want a smaller psychological barrier for the neighborhood. So I just wanted to ask where we were at with this whole process.
Can I respond? Respond to Meryl?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Meryl, for the question. And I don't have an answer for you. I've written down to get you an answer here on when that sound wall will be performed. That's part of our NEPA reevaluation process. So I will find out more details of when that is planned to happen and when those surveys to the homeowners will occur.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Meryl. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment section. I'm going to bring it back to council. We don't need to take an action on this. So really it's a thank you to Ryan as usual for the update and the persistent and continued work. So
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Gonna move on to voting charter changes.
And it got a piece of information out.
Yeah. Hey, Meryl.
Yeah.
We can still hear you.
Oops.
You didn't say anything troubling though. Yeah. No swear words. Okay.
That would have been funny.
Okay. Item number 20, voting charter changes. To summarize what we did have a chance, why don't you go ahead and do a
Certainly. Madam Mayor, we had this on, this was brought up by Councilor Godus at the last meeting. And council gave direction to have some discussion around 3 potential changes to the charter for the November election. And those included moving the election to November of even years. And the second was contemplating whether or not we should have an elected mayor versus the appointed out of council mayor, which is it's kind of, in my experience, about half and half on home rule communities that do that. And then the third was an instant runoff or ranked choice voting, something like that. We had a chance to and the reason for the public's benefit why we had a work session today and then this is also on tonight, we have a deadline to provide any ballot questions to the county of the Friday after your next meeting. One of the new things that for, Ryan, we also have to have, when we deliver that to the county, we have to have it fully translated in Spanish as well. So, which is why we were happy that we passed. You guys made a decision on the resolution tonight because that gives us an opportunity to get that ballot question translated. So, we didn't draft actual, I gave you some language potential, but we don't have any actual ballot languages drafted yet. If you want to move forward on that, that's something we'll have to adopt at the next meeting or potentially call a special meeting to discuss language. My takeaway from this afternoon was that there was a lot of interest in looking more holistically at the charter on a number of issues, but in particular, the issue you guys wanted to maybe talk about more in depth tonight was whether or not to put on a ballot question regarding the November election this November. So I'm switching the municipal election to November this November. So with that, I'd turn it over to council. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I guess more than anything, does anybody have questions about that? Or do they want to go ahead and if there's a motion to get a discussion going and see if there's support for that? Councilor Gotis.
I would move that we only entertain municipal charter article 2, section 2.3 election date. And my motion would be simply that we have some language at the next meeting to review and have a conversation, and we take that time to talk to our friends and neighbors about that.
Councilor Weimer.
I will second that.
Okay. Okay. With that, does anybody have questions, comments? Councilor Zelinski.
I just, I thought we were at the comment part, so I'm
Yeah.
like, yes,
Yeah.
I concur. I was going to enthusiastically second that and, Mitchell beat me to it.
Because I'm not enthusiastic enough.
So this would
No.
be municipal elections. We would move them and this would be.
This is for us to have the language to talk about it at the next meeting. So we're not, so I would like to see us have discussion around that potential with also continuing the conversation, because I do think subheading A and C also have merit. I just feel like we need to give that a little bit more time. But I think that moving the election date, I think is something that we can talk about comfortably sooner rather than later. And I would like us to talk about that at our next official meeting.
So I can't believe I'm saying these words, but I would like to add a friendly amendment. You always say that. You always say that. I would like to add a friendly amendment that in addition to the language next meeting, we also have from our municipal attorney, our city attorney, that's his name, city attorney and city manager, the two of you would bring back a time frame for an ad hoc charter review committee, what it would entail, what the time frame would look like, and what we could do for the remaining items.
You have to second that.
I would accept that amendment.
It's friendly.
I would accept the generous,
Okay.
friendly.
Second, will you amend your second?
Enthusiastic.
Okay. hold on.
Amend my second.
Okay, great. So we have a motion, that's been amended. We have a second that's been amended. Do we have any additional comments before I call the question? Councilor Gotis.
I appreciate your friendly amendment. I think it's great. We have been talking about it going council's back of taking a more holistic approach. I just think it's time. We don't have to construct the entire house. I think at some point we just need a deck. And so I think this is something we can simply talk about. And I would really encourage the rest of my fellow counselors to talk to their friends and neighbors about what they think. And if they come back and like, yeah, it's just not that big of a deal. That's awesome. Let's not complicate things.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, it looks like that passed unanimously. You guys have some marching orders, which we really appreciate in advance, the energy you guys put into them. Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. Moving on, report from city manager. City manager?
Yep, just a couple of quick things. We had a meeting this morning at the job trailer with BLD about the mud and sediment that's kind of running down the roads. I think we've reached a compromise with them. We're going to allow them to go back to work, and they're going to put together a plan for us to take care of the things that we've asked them to take care of. So I think that we're making progress on that one. The second thing, I just wanted to remind everybody that generally speaking, if you need something from me and you email me, it's a good idea to copy Sarah. She's the one that just makes
Great.
sure stuff gets done, right?
Thank you.
The last thing is, I went up to the landfill with Liz today, and she kind of gave me a tour. And I don't go to a lot of landfills, so I don't really know what to expect, but it is absolutely immaculate up there. Everything has its place. Everything is
Yep.
in its place. I've never seen the crew work together so well. It just really is going very well up there. So thank you, Matt, and thank you, Liz. I think
Thanks,
that's it for
Liz.
me.
Yeah. I think that, it was such that was a different city council, but great move to take that back and do it internally. Yeah. I know, I wasn't gonna, I was giving you guys some kudos. Okay.
Great staff to do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And talk about poaching employees from other organizations. Well done on that one. From this, from Pitkin County, right?
Yeah,
It was intentional. It was like a total shout out. Okay. Okay. Moving on.
I don't think I can't top that, so I'm good.
Okay. Great city staff. Thank you so much. You guys all, you all work really, really hard and we appreciate you. Thank you. We do have one item under correspondence, incoming, outgoing. Do we need action on that?
I just would like to know, if possible, if you guys would like me to go ahead and sign a letter or ask you to sign a letter in support of Lift Up.
Yeah. Counselor Schechter.
No.
Okay. Counselor Gotis.
Oh, yes.
Okay, let's do this. I think Jonathan just made a motion to approve. All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We all signed that letter and thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Moving on, we got,
There's another letter.
oh, sorry, I thought there was just the one.
There's one, there's a charging and fueling infrastructure grant. This is a letter of support from Garfield County entities. We are a Garfield County entity. This is for high-speed electric chargers throughout the county in the region. And I would love to make a motion that we write a letter of support to the $20 million charging and fueling infrastructure grant that would be serving Grand, Route, Summit, Eagle, Pitkin, and Garfield counties.
Is that a motion?
It is.
Okay, okay, great. All those in favor?
that again, Shelley.
I will second that motion.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We have a motion from Counselor Gotis to sign a letter of support, a second from Counselor Kaup. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, great. I think we're all set then from report from city administration. I'll move on to council comments. Counselor Kaup, you are still,
Sorry.
Okay, good. Counselor Schechter.
Well, thank you. He's not here, but another set of kudos to Jim Hardcastle, the River Commission, their spouses, and sponsors that put together an incredible River Fest a week or two ago. It was phenomenal, and we hauled a lot of stuff out. So kudos, Jim. Commissions, housing is still 2 spots short and an alternative. Anybody you can think of that is willing to serve and has an interest in housing, we have a big need there. We have a spot on the Workforce Housing Financial Advisory Board, a full-time spot and an alternate as well. We can use willing, helpful perspective there. 2 other things, well, Bree knows we have, is it September 12th? I think it's really important. We have our evacuation and wildfire safety plan public meeting from 6:30 to 8:30. I would get the word out there as much as possible since that was such a big deal and staff has worked hard. And the last thing is just anecdotal. As I was coming here today, as I often do, I saw some apparent visitors looking at a sign and I said, "Oh, do you guys need any help?" They're from Minnesota and I didn't even realize, and I don't know how many there are. They were looking at our public art map that's down by the train station. It lists all the public art installations with a map and where they are. And they said, "Yeah, we love coming to towns and they treat it like a scavenger hunt." They said, "We go around looking for these and it breaks us out of the main downtown and learn." I don't even know if there are other signs there, but it was extremely impressive to me in the role of public art and something we may not pay enough attention to, but it was a cool little anecdote. Thank you.
Counselor Zelinski.
So I just wanted to give a shout out. I was gonna do Riverfest, but you already got that. So I was gonna give a big shout out. No, don't be sorry. I just think that was a very impressive event. Well attended, well run. It sounds like they have improved upon it every year and will continue to do so. And so I think it's impressive. I was gonna give a shout out to both CDOT and our staff. We had a ton of rain recently and we've had a lot of runoff. We had a pretty significant event on 82 and it was impressive how much earth they moved and how quickly they got that opened back up. So as a Glenwood Springs resident, I say thank you to CDOT because that could have been nightmarish for our community if it wasn't ready for Monday morning commute. So thank you there. And also, there was some runoff on Midland, which happens regularly, and that was taken care of very quickly. And so I just want to give a big thank you to those responsible for getting that done.
Awesome. Counselor Dunn.
Cool, thank you. I'm going back to the consent agenda, quick item B, Historic Preservation Board appointment. I'd like to welcome Liz, whose last name eludes me right now, but it's Liz. She's very lovely. She applied and we appointed her tonight to the commission. And I can say at this point, the HPZ is complete. We're full, no vacancy. So fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's see, Counselor Weimer. It's Liz June. Junge.
Thank you.
Counselor Weimer.
I've noticed an ice cream truck driving around lately. And I've seen it pulled over and stopped a couple of times with kids around. Is that thing regulated at all? Do we have any rules around ice cream trucks or?
Yeah, they're all. I heard it outside my window. I almost ran out.
I was just curious about that.
That's terrifying.
Agreed.
I don't know the answer to that question. That's regulated. I would think it's regulated like a food truck.
Yeah, Department of Health, from the county, would address it as far as food trucks.
Does it get permission or anything to operate in city limits or?
I think it's outside of like our regular food truck.
anti
No,
ice
it's just,
cream.
I was gonna say, I'm dancing carefully around the, I don't want to be perceived as anti ice cream either.
Right.
It's really never been something, we've never had a lot of trouble with, having them in town. It came down my street, well, it came down our street the other day, a couple of times. It's kind of the same as the guys that are kind of strolling through with the small carts. I guess until it becomes more of an issue, I don't know that it's really in our wheelhouse to regulate specifically, as far as the mobile ones go.
They don't sell liquor, so I'm not involved.
Right, and I don't have Hannah here to be able to address from a
They
calm
would
down
make a lot
standpoint.
more money if they
Yeah, there's-
to do that, like.
So anyway,
Factories.
essentially because they're moving along all the time, we
Yeah,
haven't, it's not like a traditional food truck. But as far as meeting Department of Health standards, they have to do that.
We just assume that they're good.
Well, it's, not.
It's not our role to.
Well, it's not
put
our
in
role
there.
to chase them down.
Okay.
Counselor Godus.
Childhood obesity, diabetes are significant issues in this country. And I don't appreciate us not taking a strong stance on ice cream. Counselor Weimer. That being said, I'm kidding about that. Sumner, serious question. Is it time to talk about, given the vacancies, and I guess Shelley and whoever else are on both the 2C committee and the housing committee, there seemed to be a very significant reason to have separate committees originally. Given that the 2C funds kind of tapped out for the next half decade-ish, and that we have vacancies on both. Should we be entertaining a conversation of merging those into one housing committee with maybe a subcommittee or expertise, or do we still need to have separate committees even if we can't attract a full committee?
I don't know about the legislation part of it. From an interest and a challenge point of view, I'd say it's worthy of discussion. Both of them have been not charged, but encouraged by liaisons to say, firm up your goal, strategy, and action plans, specifically with timelines and dollars. And that would be a good point to see whether there's enough overlap to merge or not. So I would put that out as reasonable. I would encourage them to get those plans to us and then see. Thank you. It's a good point.
And maybe a joint work session between the two
Yeah,
would be
that would
helpful, just to see where they align and conversely where they
Or
could be
diverge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kudos to the last Summer of Music, which was last night. I know, right? I missed it too. And
No, I was there.
oh, you were there.
That's
Oh,
what I was gonna
shoot.
say.
I
was
missed
gonna
it.
say, cause I was there.
And every year I'm sitting around in early June, mid-June, even late June, going, when's this going to start? And every year, it's not Labor Day yet. Why is it ended? And so I love throwing money at nonprofit groups. And this is one that if we could possibly do more to extend that season, is such a good community event that brings people together in ways like the farmers market, in ways that are community based. And so I know we don't have a lot of extra money for that kind of thing, but any way we can work with them, provide resources, possibly other than money, maybe even money, to extend that season. Because every time I go, I'm always like, even when I hate the music, it is such a great community event to see everybody.
Yeah. Okay, great. Anything else? Okay. Counselor Coe?
Oh, I was just gonna add on to what Sumner said about the housing and 2C commissions. I think might be a good time to have that conversation. We can talk to staff about it because the two have different charges. But now that 2C is getting farther along and getting their programs together, the housing commission's supposed to be working more on zoning changes and things like that, but it might be smart to bring the two together. So. Thanks.
Okay, great. I have just a couple ones. Let's see, I'm going to go back to something I mentioned earlier this evening, and that is that the Oasis Creek subdivision is having discussions about implementation over code enforcement. We're having a community meeting here in council chambers on the 22nd next week, and that's at 5:30 p.m. So those of you who are impacted, if you want to come join us and join in the conversation, your voice matters and we'd love to hear your thoughts. I was also going to do a shout out to the Summer of Music. Once again, one of those time honored just events every single summer that really defines the community, whether or not you join or, I can hear the music from when the windows are open from my patio. So a huge shout out to all those who organize it and commit to these things that, they're not getting paid for these things. These are truly community connections and investments that create strong ties that make us feel like this is what Glenwood is, rather than, stirring negativity. They're stirring positivity. They're creating experiences. So thank you for that. And the last one, I want to also mention that, the market on 7th Street, the DDA is doing a great job. They have a really easy to navigate website, and they also are going to be they have live music all the way through the 10th of September. So definitely Tuesday night for those, get on down. And this is the time of year where the produce and just all of the goods they're selling are definitely in their prime. So, and last but not least, I said I would do a little shout out to Paige Anderson. This is Angie Anderson from the Chamber, who very kindly did an act of kindness for me because I was on crutches. And I just wanted to make sure that I said thank you publicly. So thank you, Paige. I hope you had a great first day of school. Okay, with that in mind, I'm gonna have Marco announce where we're headed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As always, social event tonight is at Dog Holidays and we'll reconvene in, I don't know, 20 minutes or so.
Perfect. Okay,
Thank you.
I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Then you do that again?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all so much and have a great evening.